Welcome to Monday's Anxiety. Week 8 has tested every bit of my fantasy patience. More injuries. Rosters are in absolute shambles. It is time to slam, not hit, but slam the panic button. Oh, but wait. National Tight End Day? Is that bringing a glimmer of hope for our fantasy rosters? Let's dive in. Find out what Week 8 and the chaos happened. Good morning. As you can see, it's just Josh and myself. Ryan's head, after picking Kate Otten this past week or the last 2 weeks, has gotten too big for the screen, so we had to give him a day off.
That was his mic drop moment.
Let that thing come back down to size. Josh, how are we doing this morning?
Eagles victory Monday, baby. I'm doing great. I'll tell you what, if you're a Browns or a Bears fan, woof. That was a rough ending for you guys. Let me tell you. We'll get to that later.
I think Bears fans are getting used to that, though. I do got two things to bring up real quick, and it's not even fantasy related. I kind of hit these when we were talking backstage. But, dude, it's 2024. First of all, how do we miss a blatant face mask call when there's 3 refs right there? God only knows. But then more importantly, it may be hurting my heart a little bit here. How in the hell do you not have a goal line cam in Tampa to see that absolute fumble there by Kyle Pitts? A little bitter I am. A little bitter.
I mean, I get that. I'm not a Bucs fan, but I get it. But as somebody that rosters Kyle Pitts, thanks for the touchdown.
Yeah. I see how you are this morning. Don't forget. Hit that like, hit that subscribe for us. We just crossed over 1,300. Congratulations to the Club Fantasy family for that. If you have chats you have to get answered, don't forget we have that super chat available for you that will jump you to the front of the line. Josh, let's play a few bills real quick with the Trophy Smack.
Absolutely. Our sister site, Women of Fantasy Football and Trophy Smack, have formed a great partnership. Use the unique affiliate link, trophysmack.com/WOF. That's WOFF. And get all of your achievement-based needs. Championship trophies, championship belts, championship rings, wall smack to decorate your office, your hallways, your kids' rooms. All of it is absolutely fantastic. And more importantly, you can customize these trophies and achievement-based products. So once again, go to trophysmack.com/WOF. That's WOFF. Any and all commissions that we get from this link, all of it is going towards helping women attend these NFL media events, i.e. the Super Bowl, the NFL draft, the scouting combine. We send representatives from Women of Fantasy Football to all of these events, and we would very much like it for that to not come out of their pocket. We can provide the credentials as well as hopefully some, perks to go along with that. So once again, trophysmack.com/WOF, WOFF. Show some love to the ladies and everybody else on the WOF and Club Fantasy teams.
Yeah, real quick, Josh, I hadn't even brought this up over the last few weeks, but talking about Trophy Smack and their wall smack, dude. This is high quality, very good. It's metal, magnet right to the wall. You can change them out, all that kind of good stuff. But you send them a picture, and that's the kind of quality you're getting is right back to you. Very good.
Just the picture, because Gators. Bleh.
Well, I mean, I did that one there, and I don't know if you can see it right here. I get the Bucs one right there.
I mean, because that's much better. I mean,
2-0 in the Super Bowl. That's all I know. Anyway, let's get to the weekly refresher where we normally kick it to Ryan, but again, Big Head Ryan's got to take it off this week, which I understand. Picking the stream of the week at tight end. Wow, good job, Ryan. You deserve a day off.
All right. Well, going back to Thursday night, the Rams pull off the upset over the Vikings, 30-20. Welcome back, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And hey, welcome back to Relevance. Matthew Stafford looking good. Kicking things off on Sunday. Eagles handle business against the Bengals, 37-17. Jalen Hurts with 4 touchdowns. The Cardinals against the Dolphins. Cardinals 28-27, winning on a last-second Chad Ryland field goal to really stun the Dolphins, who were handling business most of that game. The Browns pull off the upset on the Ravens, 29-24. All hail Jameis Winston, baby. Eating them W's. The Lions throttle the Titans 52-14. Jared Goff, 85 passing yards.
Stud.
And they win. They put up 52 points. Unreal. Absolutely unreal. The Patriots absolutely shock the New York Jets 25-22. Another game-winning field goal in that one. The Tampa Bay Bucks and the Falcons. Falcons handle that 31-26. Kirk Cousins, Kirko Chains, baby, 4 touchdown passes. Packers, they pull it out against the Jags. That was a lot closer than it should have been, 30-27. Jordan Love goes down with a groin injury. Another last-second field goal. Brandon McManus for the win there. The Texans and the Colts. Texans handle it 23-20. Man, these close games. It was a great witching hour in that 1 o'clock window if you were watching Red Zone, let me tell you. The Chargers, they beat the Saints 26-8. Welcome back to relevancy, Justin Herbert in that one. Bills take care of the Seahawks 31-10. The Broncos dismantle the Panthers 28-14. Chiefs 27-20. That game was not as close as the final score was, I can tell you that. And of course, the Hail Maryland. The Commanders beat the Bears 18-15. Jaden Daniels, 326 yards, and the game-winning touchdown pass to Noah Brown. And, of course, on Sunday Night Football, the 49ers beat the Cowboys 30-24.
I'm only going to bring this up because you made it so apparent how good Kirk Cousins was.
Look,
Kirk Cousins on the year.
All I said, I didn't say he was a fucking rock star.
Well, I mean, if he plays Tampa, he is. On the year, 2,100 yards, 14 touchdowns. In 2 games against the Bucks, 785 yards and 8 touchdowns. Woof. Tampa needs
get a better pass defense, man.
Tampa needs some defensive help, don't they? Good Lord. All right, let's get into the birthday shots real quick. Rookies with big games, welcome to the league. As Josh just brought up, Jaden Daniels, QB11, the Hail Maryland play at the end there. Bo Nix, QB2 on the week, 29 fantasy points, 28-37, 285, 3 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown there. Real quick note on that, the 4th quarterback in Broncos history to record 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. Can you guess the 3?
Quarterback, definitely John Elway.
Yep, John Elway did it.
I have no idea who the other
Peyton
one is.
Manning.
Okay.
And Brock Osweiler.
I definitely would not have grabbed that last one, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Isaiah Garendo, RB9, 19 fantasy points on the year on the week, 1485 in his first touchdown of his career. Jordan Mason did re-injure his shoulder, and Garendo stepped up pretty big right there. Bucky Irvin, RB16, 15 fantasy points on the week. Problem I have with Bucky Irvin is they gave him 7 touches or 7 rushes in the first half or so. He saw 2 touches in the second half. Absolutely a disservice to Bucky Irving there. Ladd McConkey, wide receiver, 29 fantasy points, 6 of 6, 111 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, all career highs. Welcome back to the NFL there, Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver 4. 23 fantasy points, 7 of 6, 111, and a touch for him. Jalen Coker of the Carolina Panther fame, wide receiver 16, 17 fantasy points on the week. Getting some run with the absence of Deontay Johnson, if he's still going to be there after this next week. 6 rookie wide receivers with top 30 finishes this week. Josh, wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of good rookie performances. A really interesting nugget with Marvin Harrison Jr., and I pulled this from JJ Zacharysen's thread. His target shares have basically been pretty well even across the board. Like he's seeing about 22% This is just only, I believe, the second time that he's actually caught more than 50% of the passes thrown his way. So, but hopefully this is the start of him and Kyler sort of figuring it out. But I just want to give a shout out to Kyler Murray. Hey, he won on Call of Duty weekend. I guess the sponsorship is what changed things. So
Did you see on Twitter? Somebody put that out there, his Call of Duty weekend, and he posted, he said something about only you fantasy managers care about that.
Yep.
I did want to bring up one that we did not have on the sheet, and that's Brock Bowers. The reason he's not there was 5 of 5 for 58 yards. Maybe stingy KCD right there. So,
well, but this was what I found interesting, and I put this note in to touch on a little bit later, but this might be an opportunity where you can quote buy low on Brock Bowers, because if somebody sees that he was tight end 18 on the week, they're going to be like, what the fuck? There were 18 tight ends this week that scored over 10 fantasy points. 5 of them scored over 20. I think we need National Tight End Day every Sunday. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, every Sunday. Because then Joe and Ryan wouldn't have nothing to bitch about when it comes to tight ends. They'd have to find some other position,
Right.
But the reason I wanted to bring up Brock Bowers is 4 straight games of 10-plus fantasy points. 3 of those 16 or more. Again, he played the Chiefs, so it was only 5 targets. But next week, he plays the Bengals, who give up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. So if, like Josh said, if you can go buy him now, go buy him now. Let's get a couple of these chat questions in here. These guys have been waiting all morning. Good morning, Caesar. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Jamie. Caesar says, I just need TJ Watt under 23 points tonight, and he's going to go 13-1. What are your thoughts on TJ Watt getting under 23 points tonight against the questionable New York Giants? I don't want to piss New York Giants fans off this early.
Well, one of my bold calls on Wednesday was the Steelers defense has 5+ sacks against the Giants. Without Andrew Thomas, their pass blocking is terrible. So TJ Watt under 23. I don't know what the scoring is in your IDP league, but if it rewards sacks, I think he could be in for a plus 23 week. So Caesar, good luck. That's all I gotta say.
he also needs neighbors not to go off.
That was another one of my bold calls. I don't think that happens either. So I think you're good there.
Nice. Joel joining us. Charlene joining us. Was he a disappointment? I mean, I think Seattle as a whole was a disappointment going up against
Seattle as a whole was definitely a big disappointment. Buffalo ran away with that game. It really goes to show without DK Metcalf, that passing offense really did look lost because they didn't have their go-to guy. JSN had a pretty positive target share, even if the results were a little meh. But when you look at the running back position, they were targeted over 30% of the time between Walker and Charbonnet. I know Charbonnet got the late touchdown, but I mean, overall, I think it was just more of a game script thing than anything. I mean, it's hard to run the ball when you're down, 2+ touchdowns most of the game. So I wouldn't get too worried about Kenneth Walker.
Mini Moneymaker says, I just traded Swift and Cup for guess Tyreek and Baker. Thoughts on that? It's a one running back league, and he needed a quarterback with Richardson just shit in the bed.
Yeah.
I now have Baker, Ramondre, Tyreek.
I think that's Amon-Ra.
Oh, Amon-Ra. Okay. Tyreek, Kyron, Bowers, BTJ, and a coming week 10 of CMC.
I don't hate it. I mean, you obviously don't need Swift. I mean, getting Baker back without those weapons, that's definitely a little scary. I mean, he's tied for the league lead in interceptions right now with 9, which I never would have thought that he would be tied with Patrick Mahomes in that category, but, it is what it is. But I think Tyreek's he's going to be good the rest of the season. I mean, you saw the difference in that offense with Tua Tagovailoa coming back from the concussions. As long as Tua stays healthy the rest of the year, Tyreek should be a top, 7 wide receiver the rest of the way. So, and I'm not convinced that Cooper Kupp is going to be this lights out, top 3 fantasy option that we kind of want him to be. I mean, we saw it just in this game. He ran more routes than Puka Nacua, and Puka outproduced him. So, and this is kind of what we've seen from Cooper Kupp over the years. Like, he gets hurt and these injuries nag. So I think that ultimately is going to open up a lot more room for Puka. So I think getting this return is pretty solid, especially with the way that the team is constructed.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't see the game. I saw it on the highlight afterwards, but Tua did slide yesterday, and the fans really enjoyed that. So that was nice.
Yeah, that was an eruption when he slid. I was like, I saw that, and I'm like, going over here clapping. I'm like, hey, he learned something.
He probably could have played 2 weeks ago, but they had to get that sliding. They had to get the slip and slide from Hard Knocks down there to South Beach. George, I got the Lions game script was bad, but it's really hard to continue to play Amon-Ra as a top 5 wide receiver. For the second time this year, the Lions scored 50 points. Actually, it's the first time the Lions have scored 50 points this year. Yes. The Bucs were the only team to score 50 points until yesterday in the league. Bucs scored 51, and
I know they put up 40 in back-to-back games.
Back-to-back weeks of 40, but not 50.
Gotcha.
So I'll touch on this real quick because I do have this as part of my notes. Do not sweat Amon-Ra. He's the first Lions player to receive touchdowns in 5 consecutive games since Calvin Johnson in 2011.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and we've been talking about this for the last few weeks, especially here on this show, the Lions offense is really fucking good. And that's not really an understatement by any means. They're really good. They have a lot of weapons on this team. So they don't need to key in on one guy the way that like the Cowboys do with CeeDee Lamb, right? They can distribute the football. They have a lot of playmakers. And more importantly, they have 2 really good running backs that help them control games. So when that happens, you're not always going to be in the type of game scripts where you have to throw the football a ton. I talked about this when Jameis Williams got suspended. That's going to open up opportunities for Sam Laporta. They didn't have a ton of pass volume. Laporta was over a 30% target share this week, and he ended up catching a touchdown. So, again, positive game scripts in that sense, but they're trying to get everybody involved. This isn't a team with like selfish players. Amon-Ra is not a diva wide receiver, so he's not going to be throwing fits and, saying, hey, you got to give me the football because that's the only way we're going to win. He knows that they have a multitude of ways that they can win football games. Jahmyr Gibbs busts a long run for a touchdown. Sam Laporta gets in the end zone. Khalif Raymond dominates on special teams and then goes through and catches a late game touchdown for icing on the cake, right? There's so many ways that the Lions offense in general can beat you. They are, in my opinion, the best team in the NFC. And I don't think it's particularly close. The defense just needs to make strides in certain areas, especially their pass defense, and they seem to be getting better in that realm. But I don't think that Amon-Ra is that reliable top 3, top 5 wide receiver. He's wide receiver 9 currently in points per game. Total points, I believe he's wide receiver 11. You're still starting him. He's a starting wide receiver. There's no 2 ways about that. He's always going to have these games where he's going to have a pop target share. Luckily for fantasy managers, he at least salvaged his day because he caught a touchdown. And sometimes you just have to take the good with the bad, truthfully. But you really just kind of have to sort of support him around your lineup with some of these boom bust type wide receivers that ultimately that you hope can kind of pop on weeks that the game script doesn't lend itself to 30 plus pass attempts for the Lions offense.
Well, that's funny you say that because Jared Goff only has 2 games this year where he's passed or had more than 25 attempts, and that was in week 1 and week 2. So
that's the thing. When you have a dynamic running game with Sonic and Knuckles, with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, you don't need to throw the football a ton because those guys get it done, and Detroit has a top 3, top 5 offensive line. Yep. I mean, truthfully, the Eagles are going through the same thing. They've got a top 3, top 5 offensive line. Jalen Hurts only threw the ball 20 times yesterday. What bailed out his fantasy game was the fact that he scored 3 rushing touchdowns, and he has 5 over his last 2 games.
Right back at George. Adams to the Jets changed absolutely nothing. He now gets the Garrett Wilson double coverage treatment, and Wilson will be the one that gets eat the rest of the season.
Yeah, I believe Garrett Wilson the last 2 games has 17 targets to Devontae Adams 15. I mean, look, it's good for Garrett Wilson managers because obviously we were really worried that Devontae Adams was going to come in and kind of take over and be the alpha. But honestly, at this point, do you really feel like trusting any Jets player? And I'll even throw Breece Hall into that equation. Dude, they lost to the fucking Patriots. Are we serious right now? Aaron Rodgers looks like dust, dude. He looks awful. Tom Brady has spoiled teams that are looking at these older quarterbacks and being like, oh, yeah, you can play till you're 45. No, Tom Brady is a once-in-a-lifetime quarterback, once-in-a-lifetime player. Aaron Rodgers is not good. And if he thinks he can play past this year, get the fuck out of here. Not happening.
So you're not going out and buying Aaron Rodgers, is what I'm hearing.
Wasn't really on the Aaron Rodgers train this year anyway, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad they fired Saleh because that was definitely the problem.
Yeah, right?
Did you know your Eagles had a shot run defense, Josh?
Stout run defense.
Chase Brown saves his day with a TD. Yeah, I can't read. That's not what I'm here for. Saves his day with a TD. Flex play rest of the season. Is Chase Brown a flex play the rest of the season?
Or that's kind of, yeah, honestly, like the way that the running back shares, the usage between him and Zach Moss have really started to take shape through the first 8 weeks of the season. Chase Brown is getting more run as the lead running back, but he's yielding the passing down work, essentially, and the key situations to Zach Moss, which ultimately is what's killing Chase Brown's fantasy value. Because we all thought, hey, Chase Brown's the better receiver. He can do this. He can do that. Well, sucks at pass blocking. Zach Moss is pretty good at that. The Bengals are 3-5. They're 0-4 at home. If you're losing these types of games, what does that typically mean? The game script does not work in your favor. You're throwing the football a lot. Well, if you're throwing the football a lot, you need to be able to protect your quarterback because your offensive line is dog shit. So Chase Brown, unless he's actually scoring on the first and second downs, really, that's what he is. He's a low-end RB2, flex play, basically. So, yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. In terms of the Eagles' run defense, we've had the makings of a good run defense, really, for a while. We drafted 2 pretty solid Georgia Bulldogs in the middle of that defense with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. It was only a matter of time before those guys learned how to stop the run. Nakobe Dean is playing lights out right now. He looks like the guy that I thought he would be coming out of college. First 2 years, obviously, really haven't been great, but he's come into his own this year. And they're really starting to kind of gel around this Fangio system that I kind of figured would take a little bit of time to really get up to speed. But what's really helping that run defense is the fact that Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, the secondary has played well. And when your secondary plays well, it makes life a lot easier up front.
Yeah, then roll right into this one here, Josh. Jordan Love going down. Who do you like to fill in the next 2 weeks? Stafford, Bo Nix. Can't really deny how good Bo Nix is looking lately, as we brought up a minute ago.
I mean, we've been talking about this for about the better part of a month. Bo Nix is a top 10 fantasy quarterback right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, when people show you who they are, believe them, right? Like, we talk about this all the time on the show. Look, getting Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back obviously is great for Stafford. There's a lot more upside with Bo Nix because of what he's able to do on the ground. He had 3 passing touchdowns this week, plus a rushing touchdown. And there's some weeks where he'll have 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns and no passing touchdowns. With Matthew Stafford, if he's not throwing touchdown passes, he's not getting touchdowns. And that was pretty apparent before week 8. He had 3 passing touchdowns all season. So I would much rather ride the hot hand with Bo Nix. Yeah.
Yeah, he's absolutely flipped the script. You look at his first two weeks, and yeah, he rushed 1 touchdown in, but he had 4 interceptions, and he's had 1 interception over the last 5. And he's throwing touchdowns. So I think Bo Nix is probably if you saw any of that game yesterday, you saw it go through. Sean Payton decided, you know what, screw this, we're going to run the score up, and the Panthers were a little pissed about that.
Yep.
Sean Payton doesn't care. That's what Sean Payton does.
I mean, they only scored 28 points. They didn't really run the score up.
Well, I
But
guess,
you know what? Here's what I say. You're grown fucking men. If you don't want the score run up, play better. Be better. Plain and simple.
Yep. I got to bring this up. Our buddy Joel. Today is National Tight End Boxing Day. Darnell Washington, also known as. George, right back. I've been streaming the Bears defense all season. Not sure I can continue to trust them. I mean, they didn't do.
I was going to say they played really well. Truthfully, I mean the final score looks bad, obviously, and really not even. They only gave up 18 points, but I mean, again, it was a last minute Hail Mary. Like those are fluke plays anyway. This team is really good on defense. How it's translating to fantasy obviously is a very different story. I know a lot of it, their overall fantasy season has been buoyed by, I believe it was the 2 touchdowns they had in the first game against the Titans. But I mean, they're going to be hit or miss depending on the matchup. The Commanders actually they've played really well. The defense has looked a lot better over the last month of the season. They're not the easy target for wide receivers that they used to be. But I mean, really, when it comes to defenses, we talk about this on the waiver show every single Tuesday morning, Ryan and I. Play the matchups at defense. You don't have to rely on one defense week in and week out, mostly because it's very rare that one defense is going to be lights out the full season.
Yeah, George, I will tell you this. Come back tomorrow when Ryan and Josh are doing the waiver show, and Ryan will give you some defenses to look at.
Yeah, he's a lot better with defenses than I am.
Yeah. A couple more real quick. AR got me negative points in 2 leagues, and somehow I didn't lose. Wow.
Good on you, Charlene, because most other people that are still relying on him are in the tank. So
yeah. Real quick, I know I think this was about the 2. She was yelling at her TV, slide. Last one, and then we'll move on. Pickens cancel. Chances in a half-point PPR to get 16 points. I think he will be the wide receiver 2 rest of the season with his schedule.
I mean, there's definitely a chance for a touchdown, but when you've only scored 1 through 7 games, gives me a little cause for pause. But in a half PPR, depends on how many yards he gets. Like I said, the Giants' pass defense has looked pretty solid this year. I think it'll be close. I don't know that. I'm ready to say he's going to be a wide receiver 2 rest of the season. To me, it really just boils down to how many touchdowns can he score. Because like I said, he didn't score any with Justin Fields, but maybe Russell Wilson is the answer to the George Pickens problems.
Yeah, the one thing I will point out, and Josh, you brought it up, is the 1 touchdown he did get was just this past week. So, positive vibes. Let's move over to the unnecessary shots. Rumbleman's key injuries of the week. Christian Kirk, broken collarbone, out for the remainder of the season. Stephon Diggs, non-contact knee injury. No word on the severity yet, but it doesn't look great. Jordan Love, a groin injury. Drake May, concussion. Sterling Shepard, a hamstring. I don't know how he got a hamstring. I didn't see him run at all. Rico Dowd's illness was scratched late from the Sunday Night Football. Kendre Miller, hamstring. Jordan Mason, a shoulder. And Deebo Samuel, ribs. Any others that you can think of, Josh? I thought there was another one, but I cannot remember who it was.
Those are the ones that I pulled off of NFL Network or NFL.com. Those are just, I think, probably the most impactful. But I think the 2 most impactful here that kind of we need to touch on. First is Stephon Diggs. Obviously, a non-contact knee injury never sounds good. He's been having a really good season. The team is still without Nico Collins. And Tank Dell really hasn't performed the way that we thought he should. I've talked about this for the last couple of weeks. Houston has basically morphed CJ Stroud into a game manager quarterback, and the upside has been absolutely sapped from his fantasy production. That trickles down to the wide receiver position. They're going to play good defense, and they're going to run the football with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is, I believe, averaging over 100 rushing yards in the 3 games that he started this season. On Christian Kirk with a broken collarbone, I don't believe that it truly affects the Jaguars as much because they've really kind of been leaning away from Christian Kirk. Evan Ingram had a beautiful touchdown catch in the end zone in triple coverage towards the tail end of that game. BTJ has really kind of taken over that role as the number one guy. And I know Gabe Davis missed this game as well. And to Joel's point, he mentions the rib injury that Brian Thomas Jr. Suffered in that game as well. I didn't bring that up because they basically said that he was okay to come back into that game. It seemed like anyway, but he ended up kind of sitting out. But with Christian Kirk suffering the broken collarbone and missing the rest of the season, if teams still need a wide receiver, they basically have to pay up now for Deontay Johnson on the Panthers. Because really, the two that were most talked about heading into the deadline were Christian Kirk and Deontay Johnson. Now that Christian Kirk is done for the season, that's one less trade piece on the market.
Yeah, the Stephon Diggs one is bothersome because, again, it was non-contact. So we know what that can mean. We'll probably find that out either tomorrow. I'm sure they're doing an MRI today.
Yeah, it could very well be later today. Yeah, right after the show, probably.
Probably. That seems to happen. There'll probably be like 4 trades too, as well. Yeah, the BTJ injury. Yeah, fly Eagles, fly, baby. Zion jumping in here and showing a little bit of love for you. Is it Parker Washington time in Jacksonville?
I don't know about Parker Washington time, but he's definitely going to get some run. He didn't really do much in the limited time that Christian Kirk missed earlier this season. I think maybe he had one decent game, but look, if he gets some opportunity, great. But Evan Ingram typically plays that slot role anyway, so I think they're just going to shift a lot of what Christian Kirk was doing anyway to Evan Ingram on top of what Evan Ingram's already doing.
Millie Mills, he's up 4 points. He's got Najee. His opponent's got Freiermuth. Do you think he wins?
Of course, Freiermuth ain't done shit this season.
Yeah, I will put this. I will stick around, Millie. I've got some stats for you that we're gonna hammer tonight. So yeah, stick around. Let's get into the shot of espresso, the quality performances that got the juices flowing. And Josh, I'll let you start it off with the cover athlete today.
Yeah, that would be Mr. Jalen Hurts, QB1 on the week, baby. Oh, so good to say, not gonna lie, because we really needed this bounce back. And I want to give a nice little shout out to Iowa Mike. He was one of our guests on Saturday Start Sit Show, and he was hammering the point that Jalen Hurts was QB1 on the week. He was going to destroy the Bengals. I wasn't necessarily buying it. Cost me a Kelly Green Jalen Hurts jersey, but you know what? If that's what brings him back, I will take it, and it will be money well spent. But 16-20 for 236 yards, 1 touchdown. Of course, the big point of this, 37 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. This is what the Eagles have needed from Jalen Hurts. Of course, if you had Saquon Barkley, probably not that happy about it because those 3 rushing touchdowns would have looked great next to Saquon Barkley and his 100 rushing yards. But Eagles fans definitely are psyched as they pulled away in the second half. And one more note that I want to bring up, because we talked about this. Devontae Smith bounced back, that deep ball for that touchdown. Whew. That got the juices flowing, baby. Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. Kudos to Jalen Hurts for a great week 8.
Yeah, that I am one of those Saquon Barkley managers that I'm just like,
same. I've got Barkley in a couple leagues.
Fucking thief. Who you got next?
That would be Mr. CeeDee Lamb. Hopefully you stayed up and watched Sunday Night Football because all those garbage time points, baby, the makings of fantasy football goodness, ended up as wide receiver 1 on the week, leading all scorers with 39.6 fantasy points, 17 targets, 13 catches, 146 yards, and not 1, but 2 touchdowns. Without a good defense, without a good running game, the Dallas Cowboys will be playing from behind quite often, and this is the time of year when CeeDee Lamb gets caliente, baby. Hot! This is when he heats up. If you have CeeDee Lamb, this is what you have been waiting 8 weeks for, and he delivered. Get ready for the ride because it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, that's it's funny. I told you before the in one of my league chats, somebody said something about CeeDee getting in the end zone. I said, well, they're gonna have to bring in Trey Lance to make that happen. And about the very next series is when Dak finally figured out, oh yeah, he can catch and score. 16 yards of separation on that one play for him. Yeah, he was a stud in the
go.
second half. Yeah, big time, big time. Next guy you got.
Next guy, because it's National Tight End Day, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Kyle Pitts, because homeboy has like morphed into Antonio Gates and is actually like scoring touchdowns now. What do you know? 5 targets, 4 catches, 91 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. He was tight end 2 on the week at 25.1 fantasy points. Of course, in that game also was the tight end 1 on the week, Mr. Kate Otten, who we'll bring up in a little bit. But I was definitely a little careless on that last TD. A better review might have pulled that touchdown away. But you know what? As it stands, it's a touchdown. He's tight end 2 on the week. Drake London has been popping lately, so defenses are keying in on him. The Falcons are full of weapons. Obviously, we know about Bijan in the backfield, but they also have Darnell Mooney, who went 5 for 92 and a touchdown, and Kyle Pitts with, like I previously mentioned, 91 and 2 touchdowns. As long as these guys keep producing, teams cannot focus on Drake London. So if you have Drake London, trust me, better days are ahead. These types of things just happen. It's okay. And of course, my bonus, as I mentioned, it was National Tight End Day. 18 tight ends this week scored over 10 fantasy points. We always talk about all you need is 10 points and you got a tight end 1. You know what? You may not have gotten a tight end 1 week, but you definitely got your 10 fantasy points. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. Because you look at Kyle Pitts, the last 4 games, 3 of the 4, he has scored at least 20 fantasy points for you. And yes, I understand it was National Tight End Day, but Jesus Christ, some of these tight ends are stealing fantasy relevant wide receiver touchdowns. I'm talking to you, Nate Atkins, Adam Troutman, Brock Wright, Josh Oliver. What in the hell was that? I mean, come on. 175 plus receptions for tight ends yesterday, most in one day in NFL history. Right as Ryan and Joe say, tight ends suck. I love it. Absolutely love it.
They heard our pep talk from last week. They heard us disparage the tight end position.
Yes. And I do want to give out a quick shout out to George Kittle, the creator of National Tight End Day. 500th catch as a 49er, 5th player in 49er history to do it, behind Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, Roger Craig, and Dwight Clark. Has been a tight end 1 every week of this season. So props to the tight end 4 this week, George Kittle, because of some touchdowns. Oh, I'll give you my guy real quick. Jameis Winston, 27 of 41, 334, 3 touchdowns, 9.6 air yards, most by a Browns quarterback since week 16 of last year. And that was Joe Flacco, 39th starting quarterback for the Browns since 1999. And it was his first start as a Brown. Franchise record for a Browns debut, 334 passing yards. Absolutely stunner. As a Browns
my
player,
favorite part of all of this, Jameis Winston, like being inserted as the Browns starting quarterback, not once this season did Deshaun Watson throw for over 200 passing yards. This was the first time that the Browns scored over 20 points in a game this season. So basically what this week showed us is that the Browns had the winning formula on their team this whole entire time. And they said stubbornly, Deshaun Watson is our quarterback because we paid him $230 million guaranteed. If that is not organizational failure, aside from the contract, I don't know what is.
That's fair. That's fair. Before today, Winston was 6 of 12 for 83 yards. Hey, real quick, we talk about Winston a lot because of the 30-30 season. Zero interceptions yesterday or through the year for Jameis Winston. You want to talk about?
He almost had one that killed the game.
Almost.
That was close. But I also love that the very next play he threw a touchdown.
Yes, almost only counts hand grenades, horseshoes, and atom bombs. So we're not counting that almost as anything. No, it was, buddy. Kyle Hamilton should have had that. Hamilton should have had that.
That's a play that he makes every single week, but it just wasn't meant to be here. So.
Yeah, nope. Jameis Winston is QB 24 over in week 7, QB 9 yesterday.
There you go.
Like it. I like it. I like it. A couple honorable mentions for you here.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned K. Otten, tight end 1 on the week. We mentioned with the injuries at wide receiver, K. Otten was going to shoot up the board. Again, tight end 1. I mean, this is what happens. He scored 2 touchdowns. Shout out to Devon Achane, RB2 on the week. Welcome back, Tua. This might be the only running back in the NFL that is actually reliant on a good quarterback because he was awful without Tua. Absolutely awful. Now we're back to overall wide receiver 1 or running back 1 potential with Devon Achane. He's basically operating as the team's wide receiver 2 as well. Like he basically just completely lapped Jalen Waddle. And of course, a shout out to Mr. Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, tight end 3 on the week. Welcome back. Thank you. Now I can finally offload you on my dynasty rosters. And Justin Herbert, I want to give a shout out because people were dogging this guy saying that he wasn't going to do anything because of the Greg Roman offense. QB7 this week, his first game this season with over 20 fantasy points. Hopefully this is a trend that continues. But I also want to give a shout out to his lineman that just absolutely demolished that defender that tried to wrap up Herbert after he threw the football. I think it was Bradley Bozeman, and Bozeman wanted nothing to do with that attack on his quarterback. So shout out to the homie for protecting his dude. So.
Yeah, I see where Mini Moneymaker asked if we answered this question. We did, and I'm not sure exactly where that was at, but yes, good trade. We both like the Tyreek side of that one there for you, Tyreek and Baker. Fletcher says, would you trade Josh Allen and Chase Brown for Baker and Rashid Rice? No.
Rashad White.
What I say, Rashad Wright.
Get your glasses fixed, bro.
No. It's not that. It's the coffee where I can't. I'm still pissed off that we don't have a goddamn goal line cam in Tampa yet. It's still not been installed. It is still not there.
No, you're not trading for Baker without those weapons, and you're not giving up Josh Allen for Baker Mayfield. Plain and simple.
Yeah, that's a no good trade. Yes, I understand. Yes, the sweep is fine. Screw off, Millie. I don't appreciate that, but I do appreciate you starting K. Otten over Jake Ferguson. Like that move for you. I'm scrolling through here. Do we have any others in here that we need to hit on real quick, Josh? The chat.
No, I think that was it.
Looks like everybody's just giving me hell for Kyle Pitts scoring 2 touchdowns.
I do like Jamie's point about Jameis Winston though. Next week, Winston's gonna have 203 INTs.
Jamie and I are in a couple leagues, and I think he picked up Winston in all of them.
Sounds about right.
Oh, Browns fandom right there. Let's move over to the migraine. The worst. It's worse than a hangover. It's the underwhelming performance that is a prelude of what is to come. Josh, start it off.
Bro, the Bengals are cooked. They're cooked. 3-5 on the season. They're 0-4 at home. This defense has no identity. Can't stop a nosebleed. The offensive line is dog shit. Joe Burrow is just like slinging it with a prayer at this point. But I just love that in his post-game presser, he's like, look, 10 wins usually get you in the playoffs, right? Got 9 games left. We got to win 7 out of our 9. What on God's green earth makes you think that you can pull out 7 out of 9 the way that you've been playing football so far this year? Like, there's no freaking way this is happening. All I need Joe Burrow to do is throw touchdown passes to Jamar Chase. And that's been 7 of them so far this year, most among all wide receivers. So that's great. But my one big gripe from this game is not even about the Bengals. Why did Vic Fangio have Nolan Smith dropping into coverage and covering Jamar Chase on that touchdown? What are we doing here? That seriously? You've got a not so great defensive end dropping into coverage to cover one of the best wide receivers in football. Of course he's going to score a fucking touchdown. But regardless, this Bengals team, awful. I want nothing to do with these running backs in fantasy because they're never going to be in a good game script. And Zach Moss isn't good enough to actually put up consistent fantasy points. And all it's doing is robbing Chase Brown of fantasy points. T. Higgins can't stay on the field. Late scratches in the middle of the week with a quad injury. Seriously? Jamar Chase has to do everything himself. Joe Burrow has no time to throw the football. This sucks. It's awful. And the Bengals are just done.
Cincinnati had a 10-3 lead, and then the defense allowed the Eagles to score on 6 straight possessions starting in the second quarter going to the end of the game. Joe Burrow faced more pressure, but he only had 65 passing yards in the second half. I think it's more of a Bengals defense very similar to the Bucks on what the issue is there. It's defense, not all with the offense. I mean, they got to throw the ball, so they're going to be, Burrow's going to be throwing picks, but it's not good in Cincinnati. Here's the worst one for me of the week was Anthony Richardson. Josh and I were texting about this yesterday. Was not my plan to put him on here, but I cannot leave him off. Stat line at halftime was 2 of 15, 81 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And 69 of those 81 was on one play to Josh Downs. Couple interesting stats that I saw with Anthony Richardson was Baker Mayfield had the same amount of completions yesterday, 37, that Anthony Richardson has in 3 of his highest games for the year. As a fantasy manager, you cannot have this guy in your starting lineup. I get that the ceiling is high, but there is zero floor. On the season, 49 of 111, 783 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and rushing, what we all thought he was going to be, where we were banking our money on, 35 rushes, 197 yards, and 1 rushing touchdown.
If you listen to any of our shows, especially Wednesdays, no pun intended, we've been banging the drum all off season that you were wasting a fantasy pick on Anthony Richardson, especially at his ADP. People are so obsessed with upside that they completely ignore the fact that he is a terrible thrower of the football. It's either a 60-yard touchdown or a 60-yard pick six, one or the other. He cannot throw short to intermediate routes. He can barely throw anything. He had a less than 30, I believe it was less than a 30% completion percentage yesterday. 10 of 32?
31.3.
Awful. Absolutely awful. That is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. That's barely a starting quarterback in the Canadian Football League.
You know what's bad is over the last 10 years, that is not the lowest. Josh Allen had a 30% against the Titans just a couple weeks ago.
I saw somebody talk about, I don't know if it was QBR, passer rating, whatever it may be, but Anthony Richardson was second worst in whatever category it was. And the worst was Will Levis.
Oof.
And all we're talking about is how bad Will Levis is. And we're ready to ride him off. Yet we're giving Anthony Richardson a pass. It just makes no sense to me. I mean, I get it from a sense of you spend a 4th overall pick on him, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to give up on him yet, et cetera, et cetera. Panthers are looking like they're ready to move off of Bryce Young already. Look, you whiffed. Absolutely whiffed. Save your season. Go to Joe Flacco. Or just write out Anthony Richardson and be prepared to take another quarterback this year because A-Rich ain't it. He's Power 5 Trey Lance. That's all he is.
Yeah, I think Colts fans in general are ready to go to Joe Flacco. And I know
because they're tired of losing.
Well, it's not only that, but I know fantasy managers are ready to move on to Joe Flacco because, well, you're wasting the Jonathan Taylor, you're wasting the Downs, you're wasting a lot of these players that we thought were going to be decent, and they're not even decent.
Pittman,
Michael
one catch yesterday,
not even decent because the quarterback play is so bad,
awful.
All right, let's move on.
Shout out to their defense, though. Shout out to their defense because Anthony Richardson did nothing to help this team win football games yesterday, and their defense kept them in this game. So shout out to the Indy defense.
Yeah, let's move the Indy defense to Tampa or Cincinnati, and let's at least reward the offensive side of things there. Tampa is the 2nd highest scoring team in the league, so they could use a defense. Just saying, move them down. We'll accept them. Fang says need 10. Will Russ and Boswell put it through tonight?
If all you need is 10 fantasy points from Russell Wilson and Chris Boswell, that's a gimme.
Yeah, I
That's
like
a
that.
gimme. You should be able to get that, no problem.
Joe says he's up 21.3 going up against the Pitt defense. I think we hit on this a little bit ago, Josh, depending on the scoring, right?
Yeah, and that's really what it's going to boil down to. I think the Pittsburgh defense absolutely dominates this Giants offense because the Giants are just fucking terrible, and I think Daniel Jones gets benched in this game and ultimately loses his job. I don't think they've really done a great job of creating turnovers this year, though. But look, what solves those problems? You go against Daniel Jones because he's a turnover machine. So could it happen? Absolutely. I think it's definitely going to be close, but it really just kind of depends on what the scoring of your league is, Joe.
Game Point says over or under Boswell 2 extra points tonight. I don't know if I should be asking Josh this question.
You really shouldn't because I suck at kickers. Kickers are not my thing at all.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I think they can get in the end zone twice. I think Pittsburgh can get in the end zone twice. Once on a Najee Harris carry, probably a George Pickens reception, maybe a Freiermuth reception. Maybe he gets 3. I think they get in the end zone a couple times.
I think there's a decent possibility that he can get 3. If you're asking if I would bet on it, no, because I don't bet on kickers. I'm not going to do it.
Right. Fang. No, they can't do it, right? Can they start Anthony Richardson next week? They go up against his Vikings.
Well, can they? Sure. I mean, like I said, this isn't a team that's going to bail on Anthony Richardson. He missed all but 4 games last year due to injury. So this is basically his rookie year. Like, you made the decision that you weren't going to let him sit and actually develop, that you were going to throw him to the fire and grow with him. And that takes the bad with the good at that point. So you're going to keep rolling him out and you're just going to hope and pray. But he doesn't seem to be getting any better. So you can probably chalk up a W to the Vikings. But I will say the Vikings pass defense has allowed top 10 performances from quarterbacks, I believe 3 of the last 4 weeks. So maybe there's hope for A-Rich. Maybe.
Don't put that bad juju out there.
I'm just saying.
Nah, it ain't happening. It ain't happening. I'm not gonna let you do that. Let's move over to Cream and Sugar. Cream, the buy low candidate, will rise to the top. Sugar, we're selling high. They float to the bottom. Josh, let's start off with your Cream.
I'm going to preface this with, can you buy low on Brock Bowers? Because if you can and use the fact that he was tight end 18 this season, do it. But no, my real buy low candidate is Xavier Legette. He was probably rostered in, I'd say, at least half your leagues. But if he's out there on waivers, definitely go grab him. But he did end up catching a touchdown this week from Bryce Young at quarterback. There's a lot of rumors that Deontay Johnson is going to get traded. And if he does, it's basically a full-fledged youth movement on this Carolina offense. And if that's the case, we saw Jalen Coker, another rookie, had a top 16 performance, I believe, this week. There's opportunity for Xavier Legette to sort of grow into this Alpha X role in this Dave Canales offense. Quarterback play is definitely going to be suspect. You don't have to spend a ton on him, but there's opportunity that he can really grow into a potential top 36 wide receiver in fantasy.
And your Sugar, who are you buying low?
No,
I'm sorry,
my sell. Yeah, my sell is Josh Downs. Use this week and the fact that he caught a 61-yard touchdown pass to convince your league mates that he's the only Colts wide receiver that is A-Rich proof. We talked about it heading into this week. He had yet to top 6 fantasy points in a game with Anthony Richardson. They connected on it, like I said, a 60-yard touchdown pass, which typically those deep bombs are kind of reserved for Alec Pierce, but Downs ended up catching one. So, like I said, use this to move off of them, even if you're packaging him with another piece to do like a 2-for-1 deal. Get out from under Josh Downs as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah, package Downs with Anthony Richardson. There you go.
Well, I don't know about all that. You're not going to get anything for Anthony Richardson.
It's just a free throw in. Get him off your roster. Free up the roster space. Jesus. Of course, Ryan not being here. We'll skip over Ryan's Cream and Sugar. I'm sure he's got a couple that he may add tomorrow. Stat of the day, Jared Goff's 3 touchdown, 85 yards, is now the most touchdowns with the least amount of yardage, breaking Andy Dalton's 3-touchdown, 93-yard day back in 2013 when the Bengals beat the Browns 41-20 per StatMove. 16 players, including Goff and Dalton, have had 3 touchdowns and less than 100 yards passing since 19.
It really is impressive. I'm not going to lie.
It's, I mean, yeah, I don't know how you, cannot include that, right?
Yeah, right?
It's gotta be said. It's gotta be said. Oh Lord. Golly. Let's get over to, do we have any more chat questions? I want to get some more chat questions in here.
No, I mean, Corey chimes in. You might be playing a little catch up when we were talking about T. Higgins, but not T, but Trash Higgins. So we got to get his name right. I guess we got a new nickname.
T-Rash Higgins. Yeah. Well, Josh, we got a couple more segments here. We might get this under 90 minutes, and I think Ryan would be very happy with us. Let's get over to chill the fuck out. The bad or the good game that is merely a blip on the schedule.
So I added 2 because Ryan's not here. So I'm going to do kind of one from each segment here, right? So let's chill out on Calvin Ridley. After the first quarter, he was on pace for over 400 receiving yards in this game. Obviously didn't hit that, but he ended up with 143, a very respectable day on 15 targets and 10 catches. Let's just call a spade a spade. This Titans offense sucks. It's bad. I don't truthfully buy into the idea that jettisoning DeAndre Hopkins was addition by subtraction by addition or whatever, addition by subtraction. Yeah, that's the right way. That ultimately, this offense got better. They only scored 14 points. And this is a okay Detroit defense. It's not fantastic. Calvin Ridley is now the unquestioned top target in this offense, and that's great for him. But when the quarterback play is as bad as it is, you're going to get a lot of these ebbs and flows. So if you somehow still had Calvin Ridley on your team, just get rid of him. Do what I just suggested to Josh Downs. Package him with someone else. Use these spike weeks to get out from under him. I think he has 2 games over 20 fantasy points, and everything else he's been under 10.
Mm-hmm.
That's the story of Calvin Ridley. It's boom bust, and you really don't want any of it on your fantasy team.
Yeah, I want to say it was after last week's game. He kind of went off in the locker room. So kind of the whole squeaky wheel narrative, like you brought up, 6 of 6 for 118 in the first quarter. Basically, didn't do shit after.
No, he didn't.
So,
and they were down. They were trailing. They had to throw the football.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it just doesn't. When you have to throw the football, it's great, right? The game script works in your favor. Wide receivers on bad teams, they tend to do pretty well in fantasy for that reason. But when your quarterback play is just absolute dog shit, there's only so much that you can do from a production standpoint. And they don't have a good starting quarterback in Will Levis, and they don't have a good backup quarterback in Mason Rudolph.
What's your next guy?
Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've talked about him quite a bit in this show. Look, at the end of the day, you just kind of need to chill out. These are game script situations. He saved his day by catching the touchdown. He's going to continue to be a top 12 wide receiver. I think the biggest thing with Amon-Ra St. Brown, I've said this for the better part of a month, you just need to lose the idea that he is a top 3 fantasy wide receiver. That's just not who he is in the way that this offense is constructed. They have weapons all over the field. They're a dominant offense, and they have easily the best running back tandem in the NFL. And you can make the case that any one of those guys could be the best running back in the NFL if they were actually given a 100% workload or even an 85% workload, right? But that's how they're controlling games with their quality run game. So they don't need Amon-Ra to have 9 for 120 and a touchdown or 2 touchdowns every single week. They've evolved from that. So it's okay to continue to trot out Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to still have his productive weeks. He's going to have his 10 target games. He's going to have his 7 to 8. Sometimes he's going to have 4 target games. It is what it is. But the production is still going to stay buoyed because he's that good of a wide receiver. This team is not going to forget about him. You just have to lose the idea that he's a top 3, top 5 fantasy wide receiver by season's end.
Yeah, I think that answers Fang's question earlier. Not understanding how the Lions scored 50 plus, and
When you run the football for over 200 yards, that's what happens.
Yep, and they don't have to do anything but run the football, right? It's a run first team when you got Gibbs and Montgomery there, who is now becoming the as Joel says here, maybe the QB1 on his team, maybe. Hey there, Josh. Good to see y'all. So far, he has 217 points. Have Pickens for tonight. Seems my weakness is Prescott. So low in points. And Mayfield doing better this season from Craig.
Yeah, Prescott is. I kind of look at him as like a low end QB1. He's going to throw the football a ton because the Dallas defense is terrible and they have no running game. So all of the onus goes on Prescott. And when you're paying the guy $60 million, it's okay to be that. The problem is outside of CeeDee Lamb, he really doesn't have any quality pass catchers. Jake Ferguson hasn't had the type of year that we thought he would. Brandon Cook's being hurt. Jalen Tolbert is Jalen Tolbert. Like, he's going to have a couple decent games here and there, but at best, he's more like a 4 for 40 kind of wide receiver. So Prescott is definitely going to be a lot more difficult to rely on. Baker has shown that not afraid to throw the football. And you know what? He's going to throw some interceptions here and there, but he leads the league in touchdown passes. Right now, that's the guy that I want to start. So if you feel the need to continue to hang on to a backup quarterback, obviously that depends more so on league size and what other quarterbacks may be available for when Baker does have his bye week. I'm fine hanging on to Prescott, but right now you're rolling with Mayfield until he gives you a reason to keep benching him. But I mean, he had 3 touchdowns this past week?
Yep, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, when he throws for 3 touchdowns, you just swallow the 2 INTs and just deal with it.
Yeah, it should have been more. There was a wide open Jalen McMillan that again, that's just the rookie in him. That could have been another touchdown because he was just wide open.
Yep.
But that's neither here nor there. I do want to give you a quick chill the fuck out because everybody was worried about Puka Nacua and the Rams saying that they were going to have him on a snap count. Well, he was on a snap count. He normally runs 85% of the routes or snap count. And on Thursday, he was at 57. So that was quite a bit less there. Let's get over to the Monday night preview. We have the New York Giants visiting the Pittsburgh Steelers. The spread is 6 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the over-under of 36.5.
Feels really low.
Well, it's funny because I kind of, when I saw this 36.5, I kind of went back and glanced at what the scores were throughout the week. And I want to say it was like 4 teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams. 5 teams scored at least, or we're close to scoring at least 30. So that the books aren't giving the Giants too much of a chance to get in the end zone here.
No, I mean they have no offense for starters. Daniel Jones has struggled. He hasn't looked good. Malik Neighbors has missed 2 of the last 3 games, I believe. Mm-hmm. And even when he came back last week against Philly, they held him in check. I think he only had 4 for 40 something yards. The Steelers, they do tend to give up some points to wide receivers. So there's definitely a chance that Neighbors can go, I don't want to say go off, but at least have a respectable day. But I just truly do not think that the Jones is going to have a whole lot of time to throw behind that shoddy offensive line. The Steelers do have a pretty solid pass rush. I mean, TJ Watt's one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Mm-hmm. They haven't really closed on a lot of quarterbacks this year. They're very middle of the road in total sacks as a defense. But look, Eagles were kind of the same way before last week, and they had 6 sacks against this Giants team. And like I said, when you lose Andrew Thomas, you lose your best offensive lineman. And he's their best pass blocking offensive lineman. So that's going to open up the edges, and that's going to wreak havoc on Daniel Jones.
Before we get into our picks tonight, make sure you sign up with Underdog using the code WOFF. Claim your free pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Josh, 3-7 on the season so far. That's fine. I know you're sitting here saying, "Oh, Josh is saying I'm not that good."
This is what I don't get. I'm doing so much better on my underdog picks on Wednesdays for the Thursday game versus these Monday night games, and I don't freaking understand it. It's pissing me off.
Yeah, it's fine, Josh. It's 3-7 is we're halfway through the season. We can flip this and still end up back at 500 here. You have plenty of room to grow here. What are you doing tonight?
And I'm still going ballsy with my picks. I'm taking Daniel Jones lower than 0.5 passing touchdowns. I would have liked this line a lot better if the Giants were at home. I'm going to admit that because Daniel Jones doesn't score touchdowns at home. But as I mentioned, without Andrew Thomas, that Steelers pass rush is going to be in his face. I'm fully convinced that Daniel Jones gets benched again in this game. And we might be seeing Drew Lock starting in week 9.
It's funny that you brought that up about Daniel Jones not scoring touchdowns at home. I don't know if I like this line, to be quite honest. And just so you know, Josh, you brought this up last week where you thought it was boosted and it was actually boosted down. This one is boosted. So,
yeah.
So, you know,
I just didn't want to bring that up. I didn't want to embarrass myself again.
But here is why it's boosted. Here is why it's boosted. So the Giants have played on the road at Washington, on the road at Cleveland, and on the road in Cincinnati. I'm sorry, in Seattle. Every other game has been at home. In those 3 road games, he's not thrown 1 touchdown pass. He's thrown 2 in every game.
There you go.
On the road. So just that's why it's boosted.
And that's fair. That's fair. Like I said, he had Andrew Thomas for all those games. He doesn't for this one.
And they weren't playing that Pittsburgh front 4.
Correct.
I was between 2 of them, and I don't mind either one of them. I got Najee Harris at 63.5 rushing yards. And the other one I was looking at was Russell Wilson, higher than 205.5 passing yards. Ultimately, I decided we're going to go with Najee Harris here at we're going to go higher than 63.5. And here's why. Pittsburgh has 27 rushes of 10 plus yards on the season. It's the 8th most in the league. New York has allowed 31 such rushes. 63.9% of all the New York Giants rushing yards allowed has come on 10 plus rushes, 10 plus yard rushes. Najee Harris is going to go the fuck off tonight. So Giants also giving up the 8th most 30-yard runs. No other defense has more than 5. Is that not insane?
Wow.
Only 4 defenses are worse than the Giants, and they're giving up 5.3 versus interior runs between the tackles. They are the worst in the league. Najee Harris, have a night. That is where I am going.
I hope so. I always have a big smile on my face when the Giants lose. So
that's the same thing with Dallas or Washington for you damn Philly fans. Before we get into the outro here, we will Millie Mills. One thing he's noticed noticed as an Amon-Ra. Let's just say it right. Here, let me start over. We've done horrible today speaking.
You've done horrible speaking.
Thanks for having my back, buddy. One thing he's noticed as an Amon-Ra owner is that the Lions' early game script favors, both Monty and Gibbs. And if they can't stop those two, they just
there's no need to get an RSP. Yeah, there's no need. That's what it boils down to. It's game script. I've said it multiple times in this show. The Detroit Lions are not only the best offense in the NFC, they are the best team in the NFC. And I don't think it's particularly close.
Yeah. Yes, Millie, that's exactly why I told you to hang on, because I knew those stats. You would like those stats. Don't forget, like, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. We have tons and tons of shows going on. Tomorrow morning, we have Wiretap with Ryan and Josh. That is the Waiver Wire show. Tomorrow evening, Trade Block with Dusty Joel and Who the Dynasty Trade Show. Wednesday, we have, no pun intended, the flagship program of Club Fantasy FFL. And we got Joe, Josh, and Ryan there. There's something I love about that show that we don't do here that I think we should start doing, is I should start being up on the top by myself and just put you and Ryan at the bottom. And that way you guys can just be the basement bros on both shows.
We do that on Hangxiety.
No. Usually it's you and me up top and we leave Ryan down at the bottom. Or whatever. Okay, Josh, stop it. I'm trying to
Go
read.
back and watch some of those old episodes, Gator.
Wednesday night Cleat Dreams at 9:30. That is the Women of Fantasy Football podcast with Renee and Kelly. Thursday morning, oh Captain, my Captain, Josh and Austin, get you ready for Thursday night DFF Showdown. And then on Thursday evening, the Sneaky Flex girls get together. They might have a special guest this week. I don't know.
Next week.
Okay. But Rowan and Macy have absolutely been crushing.
I believe 5 of their 6 picks this week scored a touchdown.
Yeah. And they also told me to not play Matthew Stafford this week. But that's okay. That's the only one they've missed for me so far this week or this year.
I mean,
they did tell me
lose that much.
No, but they did tell me to play. They did tell me to play Najee last week, and it worked.
See, there you go.
Let's continue on there. Friday morning, DFS Academy with Ryan and Austin. Get you ready for DFS Cash and GPP for the weekend slate. Saturday morning, one of the best shows that we have on here. Josh and Joe get together for a start sit different day. Get all of your start sit questions, trade questions, all of that kind of good stuff. They get going Saturday morning at 11. And then, of course, you have us right here, Monday's Hangxiety, the recap show, Monday morning, 11 a.m. with myself, Ryan, and Josh. Any last parting words from you, sir?
Nope. Go Steelers tonight, and we'll see everybody back tomorrow morning for waivers, because we all know we're going to be needing to hit those wires with yet more injury concerns after week 8.
Najee Harris goes for 95 and 2 touchdowns tonight. Y'all have a great evening. Go Steelers.